discussions today. I'd like to introduce you all to the people who comprise our panel of speakers and the panelists. Those who've been attending these sessions do know, have a rough idea of how we work. The first session will include the speakers. We have 3 presentations. These sectors, hopefully, I mean, it's not like really watertight, but we're covering industry, we are covering the government aspect as well as academia. And then the whole focus is to like bring them all together and see, how things can be taken forward. And then we have a small break. And then we get back together for a discussion, which the liveliness of the discussion depends on our backbenchers. So yeah, please participate, ask questions, and keep it all lively. I'll just introduce you to the people here. We have Mr. Prabhakar Lingareddy. So please put your hand up. So he's Executive President and Head of Social Investments at ISTC Limited, where he oversees social interventions in areas like natural resource management, climate smart agriculture, social forestry, etc. He's an alumnus of KREC Suratkal and XLRI Jamshedpur, and he's also worked with TVS Motors and the Murka Group. But he's, I think, an ITC veteran now. Then we have Mr. Depriya Datta. Not paying attention in class. He's a adjunct professor at Amrita University School for Sustainable Futures. That's his present role. He's got a great experience with the government. He's been part of the RUTAC program, and he's worked in several science diplomacy missions and positions across the world. He was the head of TST's flagship SEED program, which is Science for Equity, Empowerment and Development. So he brings a lot to the table here. Then we have Mr. Abhijit Deshpande. We have someone from chemical engineering here. So yes, but more importantly for this panel, he's also the co-PI of, again, the RUTAC panel. He's at the IIT Madras. RUTAC, as you know, is Rural Technology Action Group, which has been started by the PSA's office. That's Principal Scientific Advisor to the Prime Minister. During his tenure at RUTAC, several technologies like the paddy thresher, automatic coil, spinning machine, the groundnut pod separator, several rural technologies were developed. Then these are our main speakers. Then our panel comprises of illustrious people. We start with Naveen Tekumani, Naveen? No, show your face around here. I know you. He's founder of Influence, where they are building the India Stack for agriculture. Of course, everything needs finance, so that's why Naveen is very important here. His organization aims to empower farmers in rural communities by integrating artificial intelligence, satellite data, and financial services to make agriculture more relevant and more, sustainable and financially inclusive. University level. Now, he again brings a lot to the table because he has experience in both the academic and development sectors, again focusing on rural technologies. He's an alumnus of IIT Bombay's Center for Technologies Alternatives for Rural Areas. At present, he's associated with the India Climate Collaboration, which is a non-profit organization, and he's also part of Spectrum Impact, where his focus is on technology translation and enabling ecosystems. Ketki ma'am? Ketki Babat? Okay, she's with IIT Madras at present, but Ms. Bapat brings with her immense experience from the PSA's office, where she was there for around 16 years. She has focused mainly on rural technology, science and technology for a sustainable livelihood, green chemistry technologies for the sugar sector, many other social development technologies and programs. Prakash Mishra. Okay, Prakash comes straight from Ayodhya to meet us and be with us. He's a senior manager at Invest India. He specializes in technology innovation policy development and international R&D collaborations. He has helped shape India's deep tech landscape, leading the AI and cyber physical systems team of the Agni mission under the Prime Minister's Science, Technology and Innovation Advisory Council. And he has had a role in drafting the National Deep Tech Startup Policy of 2023. Then we have two more people on the panel. One has yet to come, so we will introduce him later. Maybe he will provide that break for us. But in the meanwhile, we have Mr. Senthil Vinayagar. He is a professor and head of the Education System Management at the National Academy for Agricultural Research Management in Hyderabad. He is also CEO of A-Idea, which is a technology business incubator. So here we all know everybody now. We'll start by requesting Mr. Prabhakar to give his presentation.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Still not reflecting the energy of so many people actually. So let's do one thing. Let's bang the table. Good afternoon. Thank you. So what I'm going to share in the next, hopefully in 10 to 12 minutes, is more my personal insights. I'm not a technocrat, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a researcher. So I'll not be speaking that language. I basically work at the community level. So therefore I'm going to sort of give the perspective of what it feels to be in the community. And what I'm going to share may not be new for the panelists definitely. I was primarily looking at the audience, researchers, startups, students, etc. So my primary focus is all of you actually. And yes, later when there's a Q&A, we can actually get into question and answers. So as I said, these are my personal insights. So I'll start with, since the whole session is on rural technologies, I'll start with what is rural. I still remember, I think about a week back, there was a post on Facebook. One of the most popular drawings in schools, I don't know, at least in our generation, it used to be there. 3 mountains, a path coming, a sun there, 2 birds, 1 tree. And this, in spite of being in urban schools, etc., we would conjure imagination of rural that way. And when you engage with a lot of people, when you ask, what's your perception of rural? At least 7 out of 10 would have this type of imagery. Drought, poverty, nothing there, etc. But the reality is, there's also a rural like this, which is aspiring, advanced. For example, if you look at solar and look at biometric, there is actually a hypermart which ITC used to run as part of our e-Chopal way back in 2004, 2005, we started this hypermarts. So there's an aspiring rural India. Now this is where the challenge is. And this is where the paradox is. It's not either that or this. It is and. So therefore it becomes important whenever we're looking at any technology or solution, it should be able to cater to both these profiles of rural. That's the key message that I wanted to make. Now what's technology? So very often when I sort of talk to several people, the first thing that comes to mind, technology means digital. Technology is AI, ML, etc. But when you're talking of rural, technology can be as basic as a crop technology practice, or it could be a simple biogas plant or a fecal sludge management plant, or it could be as advanced as non-invasive anemia testing. So when you're looking at technology, it is actually a mosaic of solutions. And unless you have the mosaic of solutions, and I'll give you some examples, you won't get the holistic development that one is really looking for. And if India is really on a path of Viksit Bharat, you need to have this mosaic of technologies working together that can actually facilitate. Also important is to understand the context of technology. And I'll just give you a few examples. Many of you here would be familiar about PM Kusum. It's all about solarization. So we were also working with farmers trying to push PM Kusum. And so there are schemes where an individual farmer gets some subsidy from the government, etc. And then you can set up the PM Kusum. Some states were doing extremely well, some states were not doing well. Some profiles were doing well, some profiles were not doing well. And we used to wonder why if solar is the in thing, government is giving, etc., why are they not using it? And typical managerial process, then you get into a YY analysis, look at all the analysis. we got an insight that that scheme is making sense only for that farmer who is using diesel pump. It doesn't make sense for anybody and everybody. If he's getting free water, free electricity, there's no incentive for the farmer to go for a solar this thing. So how do you look at insights like that? Same was a case of smart sensors. Lot of startups on smart sensors actually. Now, again, if you look at an Indian context, the farmers have small land holdings. In most cases, the farmer stays in the field itself. Now, when he or she is staying in the field itself, he doesn't really need a technology to do a remote monitoring or report management of the water thing actually. If the farmer is staying 5 kilometers away, most of the time power is available only in the night, and therefore he or she had to come to the field to sort of switch on or switch off the pump. Their smart sensor works. But for a smallholder farmer who is in the field, it may not really be relevant. So how do you look at those type of insights when you're actually designing solution becomes important? This is the point that I was talking about. Integration of technologies. And again, when I say integration, I'm deliberately giving you 3 examples. One is I'll speak about ITC mark, very similar to the abstract that the government of India is developing. Integration is not just technology. Integration is technology, which is the hardware plus the software. If you don't have the teachers trained to sort of use the smart classrooms or any other digital tech in education, etc., it won't serve the purpose. Integration could be something like this also. The classic Indian jugaad. Here, if you see, this is basically a bottoms-up perspective in RT or a water-stressed area. Invariably, you will have the drip irrigation facilities. Now, drip, you can't sort of the whole infrastructure, you can't change from one field to the other. Second, when they get the tankers were just using the water in a very, very loose manner. You wanted to use it in a controlled manner. So we said mobile plus drip. Now, what was the challenge in drip? First, the pipes that were there had to be made with a material that it could be rolled and moved from field to field. So we did that. Then we realized that if I have to use the same setting, every farmer has to follow the same spacing between lines. Earlier, they were not doing that. So you have to first educate the farmers to practice the same uniform spacing. Then only that infrastructure could have worked. Then we said power is an issue, diesel is an issue, we went for solar. Then what happened was, the guy who was giving the tanker, he said, "Sir, the tanker is there, it is stuck for 2 hours, I am not able to rotate my asset very well." The reason was, there was only one outlet for the water to be used. So now what we are doing is we are creating 4 outlets so that the tanker can be emptied much, much faster. The rotation is much, much better. The point that here I am trying to make is, a lot of times this native grassroots perspectives actually push for innovative solutions. The other is ecosystem for technologies. When you are looking at technologies, is there a right ecosystem? And I'm just giving one example of Tiruvattur, where we had actually worked with IIT Chennai, and the whole thing was about water bodies. Whenever cyclones would come, flooding would happen, and it would be 20 days of flooding. So we worked with IIT Chennai, and what we found was, because of the infrastructure growth, all these water bodies were disconnected. So we actually then started cleaning these water bodies, connected the different water bodies, looked at the entire design of the STP based on the recommendations of IIT Chennai, but that meant you had to work with municipal corporation. This is right next to Southern Railways. Railways will never allow you to do anything there in their sort of a thing. So you have to involve Southern Railways. We did the entire thing. We were very happy. Within 6 months, it was back to normal. What could have been the reason? Why did it become back to normal? We did everything, cleaning, everything was done. Any guesses why it became back to normal? Sorry?
Inlet. You can say an inlet, yes.
Inlet waste. Total waste management, because it was community around, this was becoming a dumping ground. So then we realized that that is the integration and ecosystem that you needed to work on. there were 34 informal dumping points around this particular water body. And then when second time when we did, we actually used 20 trucks of plastic that was removed from this particular water body. So which means what? We had now had to work with the community, with the municipal corporation to make that 34 into 4 formal locations, work out a process where the waste is actually collected out, doesn't go into the water, and now getting the community, that is work in progress. How do we get the community to take ownership of this water body? It cannot always be done under supervision, etc. This is what it is now. So that's the difference that you see when you actually sort of take an ecosystem approach. Giving you one more example, I just saw fleetingly in the book about L.V. Prasad. We learned it from L.V. Prasad. But again, we created an ecosystem. This is in a place called Saharanpur. MMUs everybody runs. But here it was a case of mobile visual units. So what happened was that we realized that eye ailments was becoming important. And if eye ailments are not addressed at the earliest, it has an impact on livelihood, it has an impact on the development of the child. Cascading effect is very, very high. But for that, you need access to technology. So we actually designed based with inputs from L.V. Prasad and Arvind Eye Hospital and Shankar Netralaya. Mobile Visual Unit 1, which would go village to village. And this is the type of instruments that you have. And these are all interior rural villages, not very pakka roads. So how do you protect the equipment? Again, guess where did we get the idea from to make the casing for these instruments? Music bands. The music bands have those boxes where they carry all the instruments, etc. We took inspiration from that and made the music boxes. Now when these vehicles go, where will they take out the equipment and do that camp or whatever it is? The panchayat came forward, said we will give you the space. But before that, you needed a set of community screeners who had to be trained, who would train all the people and say that on this particular day, this unit is coming, you can go for that. Now, not all issues can get done at MVU 1. You needed more sophisticated equipment. That is where we created a MVU 2. Things like keratoscope, A scan. I don't understand any of this, but I can 100% say if I have to go for this in Chennai, I may have to take 1 week appointment before that. But here it comes to doorstep. Now, these vehicles cannot go deep inside, so we almost created a hub and spoke model. And this is where the level 1 patients would get referred to level 2. Now, even here, if it is not working, we tried up in north, there is something called Shroff Eye Care. It's like the L.V. Prasad of south. So they have a center in Saharanpur. So all the L2 cases would get referred to Shroffs. Now, all of them, you'll find a lot of them would be women technicians, what they call as optometricians. We are now training 200 local women to become certified ophthalmologists. So you created the entire ecosystem for the impact. And in less than 18 months, almost about 2 lakh beneficiaries have come in. So that's the example of ecosystem that I was giving. I think when you're looking at tech, and I'm using the word U-tech, I think by now you would have got an idea. Human interface. Tech by itself will not solve the problems. If eChopal has been successful for last 20-25 years, the ITC mass model is working well, it's fundamentally because of the phygital approach, wherein you have the farmers or you have some individual helping translate the technology. And that's where it becomes important. We have mothers groups in rural India. This was an offshoot during COVID. Rural India did not have that sort of smartphone penetration. Schools were not there. So we actually created mothers groups, picked up a lead mother who had access to smartphone. She in turn would sort of pass on that message, content to the mothers group. And this model now has become a part of integral government model. So in Andhra, where Anganwadi Sevikas, they all get trained to this sort of mothers groups. So in every aspect of it, this is a classic example, Anganwadis. Now, I may have a solar tech. Now, where do I go and install that solar? If I go and set it up with a random Anganwadi, where there is no other focus on developing Anganwadi Sevikas or intervention, I don't get the desired impact. For impact to happen for technology, you need to have a human touch. And I'll just give a simple example here in Anganwadi, what happened. They were dependent on power. Bihar, power was erratic. The moment you had a solar panel, the touch point between the Anganwadi Sevikas and children increased by 90 minutes. Because now they were not forced to shut the Anganwadi before. Their operating cost came down. That OPEX they used for actually creating nutritious food for the children. So that's the circular effect that you get if you do it properly in an integrated manner. Many of our friends are here from agriculture. Yesterday I was in Delhi for a Add Water Challenge. One of the problems that happens in technology is they tend to be point solutions. Now, point solutions by itself will not solve all the issues. You need to have a suite or mosaic of technologies. So when you look at agriculture, it starts from climate modeling practices. There is actually an organic hydrogel, the startup that we are working with, drones. How do you do a post-harvest management in terms of in situ, even in terms of when you're looking at livestock, etc. How do you carry the AIs? So it's a total mosaic of technologies that will really impact a farm. The other thing that we need to remember in rural, especially when you're looking at agriculture, a lot of people make a claim because I have this water solution, my income has increased by 10%. Somebody says better nutrition, it's increased. But agriculture is something where you cannot have attribution to one dimension actually. So unless you do it together, you cannot validate that attribution. The second challenge that we see is many people say, this season I've got these results. Sorry, as far as agriculture is concerned, unless it's tested through multiple cycles, multiple seasons, because this year I might have had a good monsoon and because of monsoon itself I might have got a good insect. So how do you sort of create that attribution validation becomes important. So this is what I was talking of ITC Mars. It's basically looking at entire suite of offerings. It's development that we have done post our e-chopal intervention. I'm not really getting into the nitty-gritties per se, but just to give you a flavor of the suite. Personalized solutions. I think increasingly what's becoming is how hyper-local is it, and can you sort of communicate in the local language, address different issues, that becomes important. Same way in terms of productivity. Again, the plug and scale. Today you have a lot of startups who have point solutions, but for the farmer, he or she requires one single interface. So that's where you create a super app or a platform or an ecosystem. So these are the type of ecosystem on the ITC Mars, whether it's the bankers, whether it's the ICR institutions, agri-tech startups, all of them are playing on this particular thing. And then you look at both full value chain approach. Farmer producers, inputs, then how do you bring the traders, how do you bring the buyers of the agri-crop. If you are able to link everything together, then you really get the full impact of the technology. So in my view, three critical success factors for any technology. I think the first thing is it should be thought through for scalability literally from day one. If it is not thought through for scalability, you will not progress further. Second is sustenance. Can it sustain by itself? It should not be dependent on perpetual grants and donations and funds. And last is, does it have synergistic value? Because if it does not have synergistic value either with other techs or with ecosystem or with the other solutions, it will not have the desired impact on it. What is our approach? Typically when we look at technology, technologists and researchers would be familiar. First we look at a prototype, clear hypothesis. Then we look at pilot. Pilot is to see what are the challenges for implementing on ground. The solution is good, but what are the challenges for implementation on ground? And we do it across different geographies. Then we amplify it. If I have done it at 50 acres, now I move to 5,000 acres. And finally you scale up. And I think when we are looking at scaling up, this is where government comes into play. Government is the most powerful vehicle for scaling. So what's last slide? When I look at any proposal from any startups, incubators, etc., what my expectations? What's your hypothesis? How differentiated is your hypothesis? Has this research already been done, not done? If already done, how is it different from what has been approached earlier? What is the anchorage? What I mean by anchorage is it anchored to a value chain? Is it anchored to a platform? Is it anchored to a particular science? Is it anchored to an interdisciplinary approach? That anchorage has to come out very, very strongly. Ultimately, what is the value proposition for the person for whom the technology is intended? So when somebody comes to me, the value proposition, don't suggest a value proposition for ITC. Suggest a value proposition for the farmer who is my customer. And very often that gets missed out when we are looking at a proposal. And the last is optimization. When I say optimization, sometimes some of the proposals could be 3 years, 5 years. So you need to optimize for time. You need to optimize for costs. You also need to optimize how much accuracy I require. So very often what happens is, a lot of people come, say, my model has got 93% prediction or validity. But the farmer requires only 90% at X rupees. For that 3%, the X may become 1.75X, it does not make sense. Because that 3% does not have a differentiated value capture for the farmer. What the farmer may be looking at is, I'm okay with 90, can you give it to me at 0.8X, if today it's available 1. So how do you optimize the cost value becomes important. At least have a roadmap for the optimization. Yesterday's tech startup, the winner, before they embarked on the challenge, their cost to the farmer was coming to about 2,000 rupees per acre. After the challenge, based on the mentoring, etc., that was given, they brought down the solution to 200 rupees. Now, 200 rupees is an affordable solution for a farmer where he or she is willing to take a risk, but not 2,000. That's what I had from my side. All that I can say is science-led innovation is game changer. But look at the economic value, but also environment and social capital. And the other one which I really like from the Food and FAO network, they are drivers of positive change, especially for the smallholder ecosystems. Thank you.
How the government works, the mysterious way?
Actually, speaking, yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, so basically what I'm going to tell now how government works now, like, what I've the learning out of that the government works and what should be done, like, my point of this, because, now after 31 years of the government, now I am outside the government and I see it's, from the, the other side of this thing. So as Mr. Prabhakar was talking about, like, I will just give a little, half a minute, this things of the, why I am talking about the sustainable livelihood system at community level. Because if you see, like, after our independence, the whole engine of the development, there was technology, the role of a technology was technocentric. It was thought that the technology has the power to make the changes. And that's true, because the technology can impact at a macro level. It has an impact at the GDP level, it has an impact, like at the macro societal level. But as one thing, like, Mr. Prabhakar told, the aspiration changed. Can only the technology be the change makers? No. And as another point what he has told is it is systemic, it's not point. And as far as the system is concerned, when it comes to the community, there is a system. And that system is the livelihood system. And if you see that the livelihood system by the definition, it comprises of these assets. I will try to make that, the time, because these are the component of the livelihood system. Though this concept was again brought to us by DFID, basically in 1991. So, if we look at it from the point of view of the S&T and the livelihood system, the focus has remained on the livelihoods, only income generation. And, but I will come to the next point. Why this was focused remain on the livelihood, the income generation. Remember 1991, when India's, the economy was opening up, this was a prescriptions from the World Bank. You invest so that the income generations at the bottom of the pyramid improves and the poverty will be reduced. 2021, there is a review report of UNDP, which says that in that way, India's poverty has not reduced. Because poverty is not unidimensional, it's not only income generations. It depends upon the other multi-dimensions of its health, mother's health, especially the education, and the other living standards means access to the energy, access to the water, access to the other, the infrastructures. So it is multi-dimensional. So livelihood, please try to remember livelihood is not income generation per se. In this concept, how the government programs works, again, from taking the note of how government works, government focuses mostly on the income generations. A tribal lady, she was earning 10 rupees, I have made 100 rupees. Her hemoglobin 6. Is it sustainable? And her children has no access to the education. Is it sustainable? So you have to look at it at the system perspective. And for that, there are many, technology has been developed through many government programs. My objective is not give a list of the program because there is a problem. They are also, whatever has been developed into the government way or into the the private sector's way, there is not a national repository where I can get that what has been developed. So there is no the benchmarking of the technology. Today, myself outside the government, I'm advising some of the companies, and I find that the main thing is I have this requirement, but where is the technology? How can I get it? And that's the thing, one thing we need to do it. So these are some of the examples which augment and address to these different parts of the livelihood system. Energy access, I am not who has done, that's not my, the objective. There is some, this technology has been developed, and this is also, I think, Madam Rekha, you were writing about that the rural technology is all about agriculture. No. Rural technology is not about only the low cost. No. Rather, the time has come, like as Mr. Prabhakar is talking about, with the increasing aspirations, the rural what should go? Technology for the rural, it's not rural technology. There cannot be a classification of a poor man, no. That change, I think we should make, that will give the 2047's Vikshit Bharat's mindset. Technology is not about a technology per se, it's about an attitude, it's a mindset of an, the nation. Our mindset is still a supply driven, technology is still supply driven. So these are some of the technology which has been co-developed, co-designed, this is some of the, the agriculture, these are all, the government of India seats, some of the programs, some are Rota program, that's irrespective. That's not my focus here to request that. Some of the technologies have been developed for specific, the geographical locations, like in the Northeast need a specific requirement, you need a Arakanath dehusker for that. You need in a LED trap for the insect pests, you need, bamboo splitter because that's the, bamboo bed. Technology can be taken to the, the community, higher technology, and that's the requirement. Like this is an experiment we did, like, on the right side, that the LED bulb, through one of our women technology park. This lady is a class 6 pass. You now look into the social aspects of that. We are actually in one of the program, we are taking feedback from them that, what is the feedback to this governmental program? She was telling a story, like she was class 6 pass when there was a women technology park started there. The first time, like, she wanted to go there to get the training of how to do the LED thing. The first, the comment came from the husband, to the 6th class, so then when she went, there are another 6 women came. Now she runs, I think 8 SHGs and generates a, the income of around 8 to 10,000 for each of them. What she says, it's not only my husband's, the attitude has changed. The whole village now look at it, we have a different, and that's important from the science and society from the technology perspective. Technology is an enabler. Technology is not the solutions at the community level. This is what we have understood out of my government program. We need a science and society. If we want to have a science and society Setu, the bridge, there are systemic issues. The first systemic issue is what you have, the information gap. We have technologies. We have a lot of, the government programs. we do not know what it's, where is what, and then the access. One example, there is a, I think, ICR, like there is a central, agriculture engineering program, institute in Bhopal. They have a very good program for equipment for the women farmer. We wanted to make access to the NGOs. We had a meeting. Some NGO in interior Orissa wanted that. Ultimately, it boiled down. We do not have a local manufacturer. That's the gap area there. Then, like now looking into this, as one of the idea here is to bring these all the stakeholders. So the supply sides is the knowledge organizations like IITs or the NITs, NGOs and the social startups and the society gives the demand side. This is the enabler side. Government and the NGO, this does the enabling. In the demand supply gap, we have technology, but very few understand that what the livelihood systems different component need technology. That's the requirement. We have downskilling of the technologies that need of the hour. One example, we have a program in a Uttarakhand hill of milk cooperative. So the women they were taking in there, but their requirement is the everyday the processing of around 50 liters. So the nearest NDRI when we went there, their minimum availability is of 1,000 liters. It doesn't work. So you need downscaling of them. Technology standardizations. These technologies, I don't again want to make it differentiate that, can the scale of the TRL we use can be used. It's time to rethink. We need to develop our own, the technology readiness, the level, this, because that's the NASA scale, like, can you use it? And then manufacturing at the local level. It's a huge gap. And then you need knowledge gap. What is our, the learning is, there is a poor science technology capacity into the, the community level organizations, the village organizations, but at the same time, knowledge organizations have a very poor understanding about the social, the system. This needs to be, bridged. So out of that, this is the framework what we have thought of. So at the center of that is this livelihood system. The livelihood system and the other problem of our projectizations of this thing is, we have been taught whenever you go to field, you find it out what is the gap, what is the weakness in the community. By looking into the weakness of the community, the solutions what we give is a perceived need. I feel from my point of view of science, because that's my strength. If I'm chemical engineer, I will look at the chemistry. This is my perceived need. But what really they want is their felt need. And this felt need point of view, which comes, what we suggest that you look at it from the strength. I will give an example of that. Then you look it into the local knowledge and innovation system, because the local livelihood system, what has happened, has come out as a product, is a product of the local knowledge system. How good or bad you feel so. Unless and until we understand that, whatever the interventions we give, it will not sustain, it will never be absorbed. I have an experience of more than 3 decades of DST. We have seen many 3 years, 5 years supported projects. Project come, PI calls a meeting, 100, 500 people come, our report comes, nothing happens. Because solutions, whatever we are trying to give is our perceptions. We have never tried to understand the felt need of that. So as a result, what we believe that this will bring a local level sustainability. Sustainability is not only about, I always say that the sustainability, this paradigm has 3 levels. One level of the UN Sustainable Development, if you are coming by flight, it is 35,000 feet view. You are coming, you can see something. Now your flight starts descent, 15,000 feet, this is, Niti Aayog. Something, you can see some of the indicators. But the real sustainability takes place at 10 feet and we have nothing. That's the challenge. That's the opportunity to do that. So I believe that will bring the, the sustainability and the resilience of the community, because the resilience of the community is already there in the community. Our objective here for the whole thing, this is an example of the, strengthening the, the weakest link. We find out that what are the, this is one example you can read. And this is another example where strength of the indigenous community. There is a Lambada community. They do the, the dresses with the women do like a lot of this. So, but they do in an old primitive way. So we brought the image-based embroidery machines, coin stamping in the nearby, engineering colleges, and that has increased in a sustainable way. That. So ultimately, we have to understand things. Our majority of the populations in the rural India have their local knowledge system and local innovation. Let us not forget that and try to understand that what are the components of that. The role of us, the government and the IITs, part of the formal innovations, not to replace that. I do not support the word alternate livelihood, because you have not tried to understand that their current livelihood, therefore you are talking about alternate livelihood. So you improve the efficiency of the current major livelihood and then it will be sustained. Thank you very much.
So, good afternoon to all of you. Mr. Prabhakar and Dr. Datta have given the overall view, systemic view, as far as our engagement from technology perspective. And what I plan to do is to give the academic view. And the points that they've made are extremely important as we enable faculty, students, and several ecosystems of R&D in India to engage with technologies for everyone, so to speak. And what I represent also is Rural Technology Action Group at IIT Madras, which conceptualized and supported by Principal Scientific Advisor's Office, aims to sort of catalyze this overall engagement of academic institutions such as IIT through the rural ecosystem. And so we sort of, based on the needs, of course, as the challenges, so I'll take it sort of that you keep in mind whatever I say, the caveats which have already been mentioned, right? So when I say needs, as Dr. Datta pointed out, perceived versus, what is felt. So keep all these in mind. I don't want to sort of repeat them, but very important sort of overall set of points have been already made. So we look at some of the problem statements and have faculty and students work on these problems and provide these solutions and go beyond prototype development to the field trials and beyond. And if you look at the ecosystem of RUTAG in the past several years, several different sectors of livelihood in rural areas have been impacted. This is just sort of to give you a snapshot of different sectors. And within IIT Madras itself, we've also looked at, for example, something like a heritage craft where how to get the black color on the bidri ware so that an artisan's work can, be very appealing. To grass mat weaving using technology which is used for otherwise cotton and silk weaving. So integrating an electronic jacquard into a handloom sector so that livelihoods are kept in mind, productivity is kept in mind. At the same time, you also have heritage protection. And with these kind of examples, where do the needs come from? And they come from variety of sources. Being at an academic institutions, our role is to sort of engage with local government, maybe farmers at an individual level, farmer producer organizations, and Dr. Datta and Dr. Bapat were part of sometimes also national ministry level initiatives where we all multiple institutes can come together to develop something which is around for a long time, but still there are felt needs and perceived needs both ways, where we can have lots of solutions still required for vending cart as a solution. And Here just to acknowledge that many of the things that I'm talking about is the work of several faculty members or student teams at IIT Madras. And so each of the problem that I mentioned is being taken up with, somebody throws up saying, okay, I'm willing to, work R&D on this and get to the next stage. And the current projects that we have, what I talked about were historic projects. And currently what we are working on is sort of expanding the grass weaving to another geography. So in West Bengal, Madurka tea mats, which can cost as high as 20,000 rupees and take about 15-20 days to make, can we make them in 3 to 4 days? And a heat pump based dehydrator, Mr. Chintan is here actually. So he's helping us put together this solution at again a cost which is affordable. And as in this RUTAC, given all the emphasis related to the rural ecosystems and academic engagement with them, far more emphasis on what's the quantum of the demand, all the questions that Mr. Prabhakar also highlighted. You have to think of scaling and all the other aspects from the beginning. And so with all this background of where my experience come from, what I will do now is to sort of talk about some broader context and going forward, what are the challenges that we feel and what may be some of the things that are looking for solutions in a broader level. And some of these points tie to what already has been made. One is scale of operation, where emphasis remains community, remains livelihood, and especially keeping in mind the productivity reduction, productivity improvement, drudgery reduction. And then there are three sets of three-pronged basically systems here. One is a rural enterprise, which needs to have functioning because that's where the ground level is. Finance, as Rekha Madam mentioned, that it's most important. And then where we come from is fabrication technology, and multiple times it has been mentioned about local. Fabrication technology, available, maintenance, local. And then we have, of course, an institution such as IIT has lots of incubation and other supports. Can we have them adapt for some of the problems that in this room we are concerned about? And then climate change is also a broader issue. And now looking at India specific, given that we have rural population, aspirational rural population, and a highly transformative rural population. It's very difficult to sort of have rural-urban divide, let's say in a state like Tamil Nadu, talk about it. It's very fast changing. So in such situations, what are the ways going forward? And so, scale of operation, for example, should it be FPO scale, micro enterprise, and same problem like this mango decorticator. We have a stall also here. And so you can think of an industrial scale where because there are pulp factories, you can take the mango seed and produce the mango butter at a very large scale. But if you keep the community in mind, then it's a very different scale. But now, how do you build an enterprise? And we are getting sort of inquiries from all the places, including Barbados. So how do we serve? How do we make a successful enterprise out of this product? And this is not in isolation because in the end, product is mango butter for pharmacy and cosmetics. You need extraction, solvent extraction. So many other things are there. So how do we make an overall solution? Similarly, when you talk about these three-pronged thing, fabrication technology, if you jot down, what may each individual innovator, you have a fabricator, and then you have the user. And so how do we sort of talk about their needs? And some of these things are very routinely available for a large organization or a large industry, let's say automotive industry or any such thing. Rapid prototyping. So if you look at all of these are some of the demands which need to be met at a systemic level again, not as an individual. And somewhere some of these things have to happen. For example, distributed manufacturing. Can it take place? And innovator fabricators, if you look at together, testing and certification is a very important activity. And again, for enterprises which are micro and small, this is a challenge. For all the group together, field testing, customization, so many different aspects are there. So therefore, the thirst for technology solution and the fact that any YouTube video, if you go, this I just took from example mini trailer, and how much does it cost? where can I make it, where can I order, where is the braking system. So if you look at it, people somewhere very far away want to use the technology, but in their context. And they want it, but how do we enable this? And so one attempt that we've made is to have a platform which focuses on fabrication and technology, and can it enable technology transfer from one location to the other, and have sort of designs transferred, have local fabrication enabled. And of course there are several, we did exercise, if you have a welder in a village who does standard jobs of gate fabrication or shades fabrication, can that person do a paddy thresher? What are the set of operations the welder can do, and how can it sort of integrate and get the job done? There are other solutions also. Some of the points that I mentioned came out of a meeting in Rain Matter Foundation, and they have an innovators guild where they're again trying to put together people to try to get innovators and fabricators together. Similarly, our alumni group and Wheels Foundation, they have an initiative called Impact Collaboration Platform. So hopefully some of these initiatives will solve some of the issues that we have. And adopting institutional mechanism, this is more sort of an internal IIT thing, but still internal academic thing, but I thought I'll throw it open. In terms of if you have some product like D-Weeder, it's a sort of a perennial product which is always there and which is always not there, because there are sort of local needs and local customizations, local sort of things. So how do you have this incubated out of a academic institution? We of course have all the individual mechanisms, but how do you do this? You need basically an enabler aggregator. In this kind of a scenario, we also had an example of this paddy thresher. A fabricator from Bangalore was very much interested in licensing it, because from Orissa there are orders. But the institutional mechanism, how of IIT, how does it enable this? Because the kind of costs and charges that an institution such as IIT for licensing would have may not be possible for the Orissa farmer to give to fabricator to give it to us. So how do you enable such suppleness in our academic sort of setup to respond to these kind of challenges? And so again, enabling for training, a lot of features are required. I'll skip through some of this. Finally, we'll end with so something which over the last year or so we've been thinking, because climate change and net zero, there is global, then national level, then so there are going to be several, already we know by 2070 what are the targets and so on. So given that within the world context, India is the country with the rural context being very important. So how do we talk about net zero village? And one of the thoughts that of course will be that in Indian context, rural, India may not be contributing to emissions as much. But then knowing the aspirations and knowing the fast changing context, we need to evolve our models to even say that, look, net zero is, these are the contributions. And so there are several sort of verticals under which we need to think about. And all we can sort of create at present is some knowledge pathways which are for India. So there's some ongoing thought exercise. And if you just look at IIT Madras contribution, and so Indu is also here, there are several, ready technologies which can sort of integrate and try to solve a problem of net zero village. But then all of this has to be thought from the point of view of energy, materials, and ethics, which we treat nature and so on. And community involvement, all of that, the points which are made need to be also taken care of. And we've thought of some framework, because this needs to be thought of from a framework point of view. With Mr. Prabhakar, we had discussion whether, we can think of, rather than a village as a unit, can we do FPOs as our base and then try to think of net zero? Can we look at sector, even in the rural context, energy sector and so on? So these kind of things are probably required. And I'll end with sort of just on this slide, which again, many of these things have already been talked about as technology needs at a systemic level. So many of the things we need to talk about in a more formal research and quantitative sense in terms of establishing frugal engineering, hyperlocal fabrication, use of multilingual resources was also talked about. So what I hope I have done is sort of given the academician's point of view in this rural ecosystem, and given that other panel members are also there who will complement some of what we have said, we hope to take things forward. So.
Thanks for joining in. Topics which I think is not an easy job, because when you talk about the urban scape, you think it's big, but the rural scape is also huge. And as our speakers have pointed out, it's a dynamic rural scape where there are emerging needs. Some of the important takeaways I have from these presentations. One is this whole, concept of understanding that villages also need to be net zero, and we need to start evolving our thought process towards that. I think that was one of the very important takeaways. Both of you have also spoken about not always talking down to rural people. It's not rural technology, but technology for a particular consumer base, as we would call it. And, a very interesting point was the challenge you all say is about scaling up. And here there was a beautiful example of how you need to downsize to be able to cater to specific population. So these are some of the ideas I had. We finished beautifully in time, so we'll take a short break. But before that, I have time for two participants. We will not keep it to the panel. No need to ask questions. If you have any insights based on whatever you all heard right now, and would you like to share, we're welcome to hear your thoughts. So nobody's listening, is it?
No.
There goes one hand. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. I'm Anthony. I'm the training and advisory. So my viewpoint is majorly, when it comes to the rural population. So I was able to see in one of your points you mentioned about the translations, of the languages as well. All right. So my suggestion would be: should we also train them in, the languages which the city talks? So the urban population as well gets to know the language and they also start to talk. That will automatically empower in a lot of dimensions and in a lot of ways and means by which they can understand, start to work, etc. So that's one of my suggestions which I wanted to.
Point well taken. Anybody else wants to offer some insights?
Extreme village.
So please introduce yourself.
Good concept, but I don't know is it achievable? Because we have to consider about politics. There, it's very complicated. I'm from a village. I know it. I tried a lot to push. It's very difficult to push things through. It's a very good concept. In IIT campus, we achieved. So that and again technology for rural area is also a good. So we should not we should make the technology for the villages. That's a very good concept. These are the two concepts.
So you think it's not achievable? Yes, sir. Just introduce yourself. There are many people from outside IIT who may not know.
I'm
So-
specialty in environmental division of civil engineering department, and also associated with the School of Sustainability. As Abhijit said, I have been trying to encourage students to develop technology and also take it to the field, lab to market, commercialize their startups and build prototypes. So that is what I'm trying to see if we can make this connect happen. So there are lots of you working on rural problem statements. But if you see, like, there are thousands of engineering colleges, students working, dedicating 1 full year of their master's program or 4 years to 5 years of their PhD program, working on problems, which may not at all be relevant to what we need in the either in the industry or in the rural areas or even in the urban areas. So there should be like a marketplace or a connect, a platform. Probably the PMO's office, they have this Manthan platform, but still Manthan has become so huge that you get lost in it. No, but I think in the new education policy, probably we should give some suggestion that the students working in such topics, you list out the topics, what industry needs, what rural areas, what urban sectors need, and topics should be taken only from this list of challenges which India is currently facing, and probably incentivize people who are actually taking up those challenges. Then they can go and have a prototype or go to incubator. So then, when I'm running these contests, I've been doing it for 7 years. The students are struggling to meet the demands from this contest of innovation contest while they are working on a separate MTech project or as a separate PhD project, and the demands from their guides are very different. So they are like juggling. Why can't we just align so that they become more productive and the output is also more useful? There is a market ready to take it.
Just in this context, madam, because after my government life, I'm now with Amrita University, and just for sharing all of you, Amrita University has a wonderful program called Living Lab. So as a part of that, the undergrad, like 4 years, each student for 3 to 4 months they have to go and live with the community, and their focus is on compassion-based education and research, and so these 3 to 4 months they must understand the pain points of the community, and that will decide about their the problems in which they will do their the 4 years of study. Similar thing there in their PhD level, which is called E for Life, and in 1 year the entire fellow he or she has to be with the community, understand the community's dynamics, community's pinpoint, and try to develop co-design a solution. So this is these are the things probably that needs to be upscaled into the context of the other the academic institutions also, because what it is needed is this type of an approach is to understand the community's knowledge system also. Then only it will work, because otherwise there will be always a conflict between that the guide is trying to be publishing the best journal, and we are trying to judge them by giving them the best solution. So and there is a challenge also for a young faculty which needs to be looked from the Ministry of Education. Any promotion depends upon how many publications you have done, how many the PhD you have guided. It doesn't include how many solutions you have provided, even if it is outside your campus. That needs to be really, if it is not there, knowledge cannot be linked to our developmental goal by 2040.
On that note, we'll take a break.